Yeah, she's the Republican candidate for district attorney for Venango County. Right out of the chute, Brenda. The purpose of this meeting, it is, first of all, it is not like the forums that you've attended. The people sitting in this room are committee people. So that if a committee person, there's 96 of us, but you know, we're kind of short, but if a committee person is asked by a person in their precinct or anyone who is aware that they are a committee person, what do you know about Brenda? I don't know. That's what tonight's all about, is for them to understand where you're coming from, what you're going to do, and then I have 4 questions. That's it. And then I have
With others, you didn't make those questions up?
no, I made them myself.
Okay.
Made them myself.
These, other than the first 4 that have come out of the recent
Yeah.
things said it, things, the rest of the questions are the same ones he had here for Mike.
Yeah. Mike
They're
got
all written down, same questions.
4 questions. Same 4 questions. You're going to get the same 4. Then I have a couple more questions, and it relates to last Thursday night at Scrubgrass, and then I'm going to open it up. If anyone else has a question, feel free to ask, and we'll go from there.
Do you have
Okay.
the whole list of questions you asked Mike? I thought it was more questions.
4.
Is that all?
4, Marty.
Geez, I
That's
thought it
it.
was more than that.
There's 4.
We talked a long time for 4.
Well, yeah, but we also talked. There were other questions that came
That
through.
came up, yeah.
You know, we talked about the Second Amendment. That was a question from the crowd.
Right,
You know? Okay.
right.
All right. So you can see they're real short.
Okay.
All right. Just why in the world do you want to be the DA?
I've been a prosecutor my entire career.
Mhm.
That's why I want to be the district attorney.
Okay.
I believe that with all that
Talk
background.
up, so they can hear you in the
Oh.
back.
Yeah, you're talking to
Sorry.
them. My friend.
I have been a prosecutor my entire life. I chose prosecution purposely after I left law school. And the reason for that is I had been a victim of crime myself. I had, if you want me to start back, I grew up in Meadville, went to Seton Catholic School, went to Meadville High, then I went to Arizona State. After Arizona State, I came back here, went to Pitt Law. At Pitt Law School, while I was in law school, I had a couple girls. I waited, after I passed the bar, I waited until my youngest was in preschool before I started practicing. I chose prosecution purposely, although I realized that I had student loans to pay because you were paid more in private work. Because I had had a burglary before as well as an assault before. Prosecution, I think people who are prosecutors are very different in nature. They do one thing and one thing only, and that is prosecute people who have committed offenses in our community or whatever community it may be in. They don't do trust and estates. They don't do divorce, custody, anything else. They don't do defense work. They do only one thing, and that is prosecute. So they're a different breed of people. I wouldn't consider them just a regular attorney. And prosecutors are also held to a higher ethical standard. The reason for that is that we hold in our hand the liberty of people in many instances. So you need a person who is a prosecutor that understands fairness for a situation, that looks at the background of the situation, determines whether or not charges should be filed. If charges are filed already, then they may need to make the determination to withdraw them if it's appropriate, or to add charges. I withdraw charges on some occasions, as well as added charges, depending on what the situation is. All of that is, in my background and experience, I have for so many years. I understand the ins and outs of prosecution. I had been in the military for a short time, and at that point in time, the military requires for a lawyer to both prosecute and defend. And as I said, I cannot defend. I had already chosen to prosecute, realizing that I couldn't continue, and they were well aware of that because I'm fairly vocal. If anybody knows me, I pretty much speak my mind. So, that's why I went into prosecution when I got out of law school. And that's why I think I am the person who would be best situated for district attorney here in Venango County.
Super. Okay. you kinda went over your qualifications, with asking why you wanted to be the DA. But I've been an accountant for 40 years, I'm now retired. We're talking about fiscal responsibility, and the commissioners have you under their thumb. You have a budget that you have to make, you have expenses that you have to meet. What about your experience in fiscal responsibility?
Specifically with fiscal responsibility, I mean, as I said, I was a prosecutor, and what do I look at as far as making sure fiscally we're responsible? I put within my plea agreements monies to be forfeited, and I'll get into all of that later. But personally, just my personal finances are fine. So, with regard to that, I mean, there's no issue there. I have within the DA's office, probably, I don't work with Marie on determining the budget or anything like that. However, I am fully aware of it. We go over what things need to be done. For example, we used to give discovery to defense attorneys, paper form. Paper form, we give them discovery. It's very expensive to make copy after copy after copy in paper format. Then they would say they lost the discovery, we have to provide it again. So we went to emailing discovery. Sometimes emails can get lost, but that's different from having paper copies, having to print those off and have all the expenses there. So I have an understanding there of what we're talking about as far as your fiscal concerns are with regard to that. So I guess basically that would probably be it. I'm aware of it all the time, given our office.
Well, has Marie let you in on the budget, you know, the things that the district attorney's office has budgeted for? Has she made you aware of what's going to happen in January if you win, you take office, and you have to prepare a budget for your department? Do they give you a format? Do they give you like what they did last year? How's that work?
I'm aware, like I said, of the budget concerns, but part of our budget are grants that we receive. I was a grant writer before. While my girls were at home, I worked for the Erie Catholic Diocese as a grant writer. You have to understand how to write grants. There are so many grants out there that we could get. You have to look for them, call the people up, talk to them, because before you write a grant, you have to have an understanding of what they want, because they look for specific things in there. And budget-wise, part of our budget comes from these grants that we have lost. For example, the STOP grant, we lost it. We had, well, I don't know, we needed like $300,000. That came back into place. So that's it. And after they had gone over the budget, the grant budget, they threw $300,000 back at us. We were looking at $325,000. That would have been a better amount for us, but at least we didn't lose the services that we provide in the district attorney's office. I think that we can look elsewhere for grants in a number of different ways. We get money from the Attorney General's office too for the drug task force and whatnot, and that's very important. But I think part of being the district attorney is having an understanding of how grants work, where to look for grants, how to get a hold of these people, and I have that background, and I think it's very important because there's so much money out there in grants people don't know about, they don't apply for it, then they don't get.
Okay, so when the commissioners say, you know, Brenda, we want you to submit your budget, is it just payroll and office supplies and whatnot, or do you fill in the gaps with the grants and the commissioners give you less? Is there a basic amount that they give you?
Sometimes grants work like this. First year you'll get 100% of the money coming in. Second year maybe you'll get 75%. How do you make up the difference there? The difference would be made up through the salary board that way, through the budget. You'd have to cover it because the third year then maybe 50%. And then maybe the fourth year you don't have that grant and you have to reapply. So yes, the costs have to be covered, and you have to work it out some way to be able to cover the difference that you're getting in the grants as it gets lowered as time goes on.
So in essence, when the commissioners get your budget, and say you're at the end of your grants and you're not going to get you're not gonna receive any of that grant money, then in essence, the commissioners have to budget more money for the DAs.
That's true. That's very true.
Okay.
And they would be aware of it when we receive the grants. You can get a grant, and you can reject it. Sometime, and you'd have to say, we have this grant, but look what we have to do. First year, everything's paid, we get all this money, but second year, complying with our grant and how we wrote it, we only get 75%, it's 25% is gonna have to be covered. So all that goes through. When you get a grant like that, you have to work with them to cover the next couple years. It's not just like an automatic thing. So you
Sure.
certainly have to be on good terms and have a general understanding with those that
Sure.
are making those decisions.
But are some of those grants matching grants? Like the county would kick in 100,000, and they give the county 100,000, and
Well,
then you get
that's what,
200,000?
like I said, that, like, for example, I said in the third year, you're only 50% from a grant you'll get, 50% of the money. If at first you started out at 100,000, this is the amount you get. Third year, it's only 50,000. Then they have to kick in the 50,000.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And I think that you need to be, as a district attorney, you have to step up, be firm. When you know what's right and what is needed and how much money is needed to prosecute properly and effectively, because it's very expensive. It's very expensive prosecution. So yeah, you have to be firm and stand up, and I guess you have to, I don't know if anyone's here from, you have to stand up to them, and I don't
Okay.
have a problem with that.
Well, you know, one of the, I'm assuming this is the first time you've run for a political office.
Yes, I've only been a prosecutor.
Okay,
I didn't
so,
run for anything in high school either.
not even student council.
Well, I ran on track.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, because the one thing that I'm gonna go to scrub grass, and then I'm gonna ask the question, my last question here, and then I've got a couple other questions. You were stated by Judy Etzel, said that she was a Democrat, but switched in August to Republican.
That's not true.
Well, that's what she
I know,
wrote.
she gets things, she's
Okay.
mistaken sometimes, but I don't
Okay,
have to correct
well,
her on
then you
that.
can correct her. Okay, Republican, because she had it with the central government. What does that mean?
Okay. When I originally registered, I registered Republican. And so I was a Republican for a number of years, and I switched to Democrat. My problem is with President Obama and our, what's going on in Washington DC
Oh,
right now.
okay.
It's out of control there. The spending is out of control there. The debt is out of control there. I don't understand how we can sit here or how he got back into office, because that is, my beliefs are low spending, low taxes, more limited government, not as much intrusion into our lives. That's why I have a problem with the pressure as far as gun reform or more gun laws.
Where are you on the Second Amendment?
Well, if you don't know that by now, I am a member of the NRA, and
Okay.
you had heard that I had been in the Army. I have a revolver myself at home. I got it when I lived in Bradford County, because there were some defendants that took issue with me there, and I had to defend myself. I think it's proper and important for everyone to be able to defend themselves, and if you need to use a gun to do that, then that's what you have to do, and we have a right to that. So I believe that, I shouldn't say believe, I think that's a weak word. I think that background checks are important, particularly as in the job of prosecution, because we need to know the backgrounds of people before we can give them weapons. However, a lot of these instances of these mass killings and whatnot are done by people who have mental health issues. We got to resolve the mental health quandary we have in this country, and that may not be able to be found on background checks. I know that the Gabby Gifford issue in Arizona, the Lautner fellow passed the background check, went out, got the weapon, and then committed his slaughter. The evilness there. Yes.
And I excuse you on that, what, the way that was supposed to work out in Arizona. That guy's mother worked for the sheriff's department. He was not mentally stable. It was known he wasn't mentally stable, but the sheriff gave him a pass because his mother worked for the sheriff.
Oh,
Okay.
that's a good thing to know.
Wow.
So he wouldn't have passed
No.
otherwise? Okay. Well, see, that's the issue, is the mental health issue. It's not about people who are regular responsible gun owners having even 50 guns. Good for them, have your 50 guns then.
Sure. Well, I know that there was a situation in Venango County up on Pittsburgh Road here a few years back where a homeowner, he was older, there was a person outside of his house, he feared for his life, and he shot him, and he died.
Oh, yes. Well, see, if I were him, I would have waited for him to get his pinky into my house, and then I would have blown him away.
Okay.
But knocking on the door without the homeowner saying, get the hell away from my house, or saying anything, because I
Yeah.
know a little bit about the case,
Mhm.
before I would kill him, I would have waited a little bit more and then blown him away.
All right, so you're also saying is that if the person ends up in your house dead, is better than outside dead?
Well, it's better not to have anyone dead.
Yeah.
However, I think that, me personally, I would have waited till he broke a window or done something
Mhm.
like that.
Okay, okay,
And I would have been waiting there for him.
okay. All right, well, that.
And
yeah.
you should know also
Mhm.
that we had an issue here, a murder of Nancy Smith and also Paul Ritchie.
Yeah,
And that was by Michael Smith.
yeah.
Now, Michael Smith was not allowed to have possessor-owned firearms, and that was federally 922G. He was not allowed to. At the time, Mr. Huntermark was his attorney. He requested that this man have his weapons back. District Attorney Vion objected to that. However, Judge White ruled that he could have his guns back. But the only reason he ruled that way was because he did not know about that federally pursuant to Brady Bill at that time, even now, he was not allowed to own or possess firearms. He, as your district attorney, I can assure you, I will advise the court that he's not allowed to. I did so recently with one of our constables that I had prosecuted. Because he had a misdemeanor 1 offense, he is not allowed to possess or own a firearm. And as a result, I informed the judge of that. Now, these people can petition later and try to get the court to allow them to possess and own a firearm. I don't believe that the judges probably in most cases would allow that. But the reason for that was lack of information. And I know that Judge White certainly is probably fairly traumatized as a result of this.
Okay. Kind of in the same ballpark. Now, a question I asked you is this the first time I ever ran for a public office? And your final comment to the paper was this campaign has been very ugly. What's ugly?
I'm hearing all kinds of different things about certain candidates and whatnot. Their backgrounds, their behaviors, etc., and so on. I happen to be, I don't have very much in my background. Well, I don't know. I did some things when I was younger as a teenager, but nobody knows those things. But what I'm hearing is it's not focused on specifically the reasons why they should not be district attorney and I should be. And that is they have been defense lawyers and been fighting me as a prosecutor all these years. And now they're saying I'll be, victims will be, feel safe now, I'll be victim sensitive, when they've abused victims in the past. When they've before filed motion after motion after motion, done delay tactics to thwart the efforts of prosecution, to delay things that actually make court experiences more expensive, and then they say, well, this is how I'm going to make our county more effective as far as financial responsibility is concerned by doing this, and the other thing. And I find it to be very disingenuous.
Okay, and saying that, you led right into my next one here. Because when you run for public office, your life is an open book. I mean, if there's ugly in your life, they will find it. And I am a prime example for that. In 2003, I ran for county commissioner. 11 years before, my son completed suicide. And they brought that up against me when I ran for commissioner. They did not think that I was capable of being a commissioner because they thought I was a bad parent.
Well,
My son's death, they thought would not be able to make good judgment calls. So, you know,
I understand where you're coming from,
Yeah.
and that shouldn't have happened. I think that to me is nasty and
Yeah.
mean and ill-spirited.
yeah, well,
And
it
perhaps,
happens.
and is that what we look at in politics? I mean, is that what we do?
That's Bill Clinton.
I thought we were supposed to look at the qualifications of a person. Yeah, Bill Clinton, if Bill Clinton was,
Yeah.
I know.
You know, ask Congressman Weiner.
The person that wins an election, who can do the job best, that seldom happens, okay? So if you think that that's what happens, then you got a problem in politics. The problem is who runs the best campaign, okay? And yes, use an example, and by the way, this is true in business also. Anything that happened in my life, people could use it against me. Okay, some of it may be true, some of it may be not true. It's just a fact of life, okay? And you have to be able to deal with it, is really what it comes down to. And I think Craig's trying to explain that to you. It happens.
It happens. And what also is experienced here is that if anyone, even though I felt I was hurt, there's no, I was definitely hurt. But if there is a candidate that has problems, don't you feel that information needs to go to the public?
May I reword that slightly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think the issue has not been, and it isn't, what happened to Craig and anybody even bringing that kind of thing up should never happen and often hasn't in our local elections. But, because that was totally unrelated to, but this is, it's not a matter of people having issues in something in their lifetime everybody has. I mean, did everybody get through the year of 12 without doing one little thing wrong? It's not singular or occasional things that happen to people in the course of being alive. It's a ongoing, repeated patterns of behavior that do not make a good image for the party, and the continuation of in office doesn't lead to having ethical, honorable, moral people in office. That's where this problem is. It's ongoing, repeated patterns of behavior that continue year after year after year up through well into adulthood.
Okay,
Or middle age,
We
So I
all
think
know
that's
what
the
you're talking
difference.
about, right?
Yeah.
We all know the candidate you're talking
Yeah.
about. But I, as a prosecutor, my highest grade in law school was ethics. I hold myself out to be a very ethical person. I cannot get down in the muck and yuck of anything. And as a district attorney, when I'm elected, will I be able to stand in front of people and have their respect if I engage in that type of behavior?
That is part of this issue, it's a part of it.
Sure. But it's a part of politics, good, bad, whatever.
But I'm not a politician.
But you are.
a prosecutor.
You are.
I know
You
that.
are a politician. You have got to get your political hat on. If you win this election, you are a politician. And the next time you run for re-election, you're still a politician.
Okay, and now I'm going to tell you what my thoughts of politicians are. Once they get in office, they become corrupted by whatever it is, generally. I've never seen Marie Vion as a politician. She's always been a district attorney. My experience when I was in Bradford County for Marie Vion's reputation is a strong, firm prosecutor, and that's what I respected that, and that's what I sought to achieve myself as a prosecutor. And she, being a woman, was especially valuable to me. So,
Can I push on that a little, okay? As a district attorney, a lot of it is deciding which laws you're going to enforce.
that's
Okay.
correct. So if you're looking at a person who has, maybe smokes weed a little bit on the side there, maybe...
No, different issue,
Okay.
okay? Use an example. There's all kind of crimes being committed, okay? I'm going to give simple ones, okay? There's not, it's supposed to be a smoke-free zone at the high school, but you could smell weed. Just walk around at night sometime. How many times can you smell weed? Okay, when they broke wine coolers at each and every basketball court, in the middle of the court, nobody ever investigated that.
Why
Okay,
not?
huh?
Was it not reported?
Oh, and not only was it not reported, I actually swept off the glass because they didn't even, the school didn't even sweep off the glass until weeks later. Okay, what my point is, I'm not saying that that was wrong not to do that. Okay, my point is those decisions are being made every day. Okay. On the other hand, they call them the lawn Nazis because if somebody's grass gets too high, all kind of hell breaks loose. The point is, decisions are made, and in a DA's thing, you get to make those decisions. Okay?
That's
I
correct.
grew up in western Pennsylvania. It was the most corrupt thing that you possibly could imagine. There was nobody that couldn't be bought. Okay? And I grew up and I accepted that. Okay? My point is, you get to decide though.
Okay.
Okay? And you don't have enough, you don't possibly have enough money to enforce all the laws that are on the books here. So you have to
No,
make
there-
the decision, which laws am I going to
There is
enforce?
a statute, and it's called, it's a de minimis, it's de minimis. You dismiss things because they're de minimis in nature, okay? We don't deal with everything. And certainly, I think that as a prosecutor, you need a person who's uncorrupted, who doesn't have these background issues, who you feel can make these decisions on whether you're going to prosecute or not on the basis of, do I know this person, and, you know, or whatever issues they may have in their background that would result,
Well, I'm gonna give you one for Vion,
okay?
okay, that you said have a thing. Now, it turned out it wasn't in Venango County, but at the time that I called, it wasn't obvious, right? Somebody built a logging road right across my property, destroyed all the trees, just whatever.
That
Right.
sounds to me like, first off, obviously a criminal mischief, trespass, et cetera, and so on, but also a civil issue.
Basically, no police said, oh, that's a civil matter. If you tell us who did it, maybe we'll do something.
Can you repeat that? They told you what?
That's a civil matter, okay? And
It's not a civil matter if someone comes on
oh,
your...
I understand. They built the entire road, you know, gravel, the whole bit, right through the middle of the property,
Well-
okay? And again, the state police said, that's,
Well, perhaps as my,
and oh, when I called the Vion office, they gave me the same attitude.
okay, well, my opponents would suggest that might not be a serious enough offense to prosecute.
Well,
But I think that for each victim, it's personal and serious in its own right, so you have to really look at that. If there's a way that you can, if there's enough evidence to prosecute on something like that, it sounds like it'd even be felony in nature. The destruction of your property is so extensive that it would be a felony. So I don't understand why that would not
I
have
couldn't
been
even get a cop to
prosecuted.
come out and look at it. Okay, now, again, this is a minor issue.
Okay.
The point is, I wanna make is, there's thousands of those kinds of things. Vion ignored some of them, okay? And that's her job, okay? She has to pick and choose. The point is, you're gonna have to pick and choose, and it's not gonna be the ideal because you would like to prosecute everybody that does something bad, right?
No, that's not true. I wouldn't prosecute everybody that does something bad. Like I said, you
Okay.
have to weigh them. There are offenses that are considered de minimis. One of our state troopers he was the victim in that particular case. And what it was the person that he had married she had been divorced, and her ex-spouse had taken one of his pieces of mail, okay, and was holding it there hostage at his house. I don't know. So he wanted it prosecuted, and Franklin Police Department brought that case in front of me, and this was when I was first hired. And that was in 2006. It might have been the first month, and I looked at it, and I'm like, seriously? Seriously, we're going to prosecute this mail, this one piece of mail that this trooper wants to have back? No, I don't think so. But when I first read through it, I didn't realize that he was a trooper at the time. But I'm not going to have that. And I was then told, well, that's, Trooper so-and-so, you have to prosecute it. And I went to Marie and I said, I'm not prosecuting this. She goes, well, do you want me to tell him or do you want to do it? And I said, I'm going to tell him. So I brought him in the office because he's sitting in the victim room, and I said, I'm not prosecuting this. And he all bulked up on me. I said, can't we all just get along? That's ridiculous. That's de minimis to me. I mean, we can charge theft, or we can make it a federal offense through, you know, with the federal government. Good luck with that.
Where the political side comes up, though, is you have to let the community know where the priorities are, okay? And that has to be widely known, okay? Otherwise, it's a large list of complaints, okay? This wasn't done, this wasn't done, this wasn't done, and, you know, and then and that's how politicians lose their jobs, because there's a large list of complaints. If it's well known, this is where I'm gonna put my focus, then it ain't a problem, okay? I guess that's what I'm telling you. Go ahead.
One of the other things that was mentioned down at Scrubgrass, which I, you know, was interested in, because I have been called twice for jury duty, and 8 out of 10 of them were DUIs. You had stated that you favor first offense draws a preliminary charge, second offense would require outpatient substance abuse treatment, and the third charge that sends a defendant to state prison. So are you saying that if someone is charged with DUI, it would not go through?
I don't know where she got that from, but I can explain it right now.
Okay. That's what
I'm talking about drug cases.
Yeah.
You know, when a drug
Okay.
case comes in, if it's a person who, a lot of times when they have addictions, go out and commit other offenses. So they come in on, let's say, a theft offense, but you can see that clearly that they have an issue with drugs. What we do is require, for example, what's called a substance abuse assessment, and it's determined that they need some counseling or whatever it may be. Those people can say whatever they want, so they can lie and get lowest like outpatient. So they go have outpatient counseling, and guess what happens when they're on probation or parole for the offense that they've committed? They commit it again. At that point in time, when they come in on this other offense, I'm saying that they get inpatient Venango County treatment. That would be at Turning Point or whatever it is, okay? A lot of times those people go to Turning Point for 7 days or whatever it is, okay? And they get inpatient treatment for a short period of time. When that happens, they get phone numbers and whatnot generally. Because people, when you're an addict, it's very difficult to break your addiction. Then they'll be in again. At that point, they've already had inpatient treatment that we're paying for in the county. You need to go to state prison and fix the problem that you have, because you can't be a proper parent. You can't be an effective citizen in our community if you have these issues with drugs and alcohol. DUIs are different. DUI, first offense, there you get an ARD generally if it's your first offense. After that, you know, you would be looking at, if you got another DUI within 10 years, you're looking at 90 days to 5 years. None of that refers to anything about driving under the influence.
Okay. Would you as the DA change the procedure for court and do the DUIs in a different manner?
Well, for DUIs, right now ARDs, which is an alternative resolution to a conviction, is for people who have what would be considered first-time offenses. Marie has it worked that if you have a felony offense or if you're driving suspended at the time of whatever offense is committed, you don't get ARD. You look back 20 years into a person's past. That's really, really a long time. And there are a lot of people who turn their lives around within much shorter a period of time. I think that if we, we might look to a shorter period of time for ARD. A lot of counties have 15 years, and then you can get another ARD. I'm sorry if I didn't explain that well. But you can only get one ARD under Marie's rule every 20 years. I think that a person may change their life around and make a terrible error in judgment and should be allowed to have another ARD so that it's not on the record, or end their career that they may be working within, for example, 15 years. I think that would be appropriate. As far as DUI itself, it's not necessarily a violent crime unless they're crashing into people or whatever. And any person who's driving under the influence on the street at any moment in time might have an accident or crash into someone and kill them, except that a lot of them don't. But for the grace of God, they've managed to avoid that. So with DUIs, I think that it's appropriate then for house arrest. I think that our jails are so overcrowded. It costs everybody in this county, for every person in jail, at least $40. They should be, I think that there should be a term of house arrest. We do that now at half, but sometimes I don't want people on house arrest because of their other behaviors outside of the DUI and what I'm seeing them committing outside of the DUI. But I think that for those nonviolent, if they're home taking care of kids or whatever it may be, that they should be on house arrest, and they have to pay for house arrest. That money's on them. Whereas the jail, if they're incarcerated for their driving under the influence conviction, then everybody is paying for it until he gets around or she gets around to paying for it, paying the county back for that.
Okay. Well, what happens, when Marty and I were on the election board, we had a big roundy with the commissioner candidates about constables. And that was something that they, we had one constable that they actually paid for, and Craig Westover is basically the head dog of that, and I understand he makes a pretty good living going out and getting people who that have either skipped on their bail or didn't make the restitution.
No, didn't make the restitution. No. I will tell you what constables do for us. If we have a trial or we need someone in as a witness, we have to serve a subpoena on these people, and then they're required to be in court. The sheriff of our county, Eric Foy, can serve subpoenas within our county. However, he cannot serve it outside our county. What we then do is we have to call a constable in. And that's really expensive. They charge a lot of money. So Constable Westover will be making money serving these subpoenas. I know that Mr. Carbone used them a lot, but there are some constables out there that are less expensive. And so we use that constable for that purpose. As far as Constable Westover picking up people, that would be on warrants out of the district judge office. That wouldn't be for fines and costs out of the district judge office if they fail to appear for, they're supposed to, if they get a conviction for driving suspended for the 6th time or something like that, and the judge issues a warrant for them, district judge, then he will pick them up.
Okay, well then what if a person is convicted and he's ordered to pay cost and restitution and whatnot and doesn't, who takes care of that?
That is done, cost and restitution and fines and whatnot, that is done by generally by the sheriff. If they happen to come upon someone who, some other member of law enforcement, let's say local or state police, come upon that person while they're arresting them for something else, and it flashes up, we have a warrant for their arrest, then they'll be taken to the Venango County Jail on that.
Okay.
Even if they're stopped for speeding, and then when they're stopped, they run them, and they see he has a warrant. So they're taken to jail then on that warrant. So it depends on what the situation is, but the costs then are the sheriff, that goes through the sheriff's office.
Sure.
But all those costs are costs depending on what the fines and costs are about. If they're for prosecution, then it comes back. More money is put on his tab that he has to pay. We have a bench warrant hearing for him, so everybody gets into court so that he can pay, and then the judge says, you promised to pay the last 8 times, now I'm going to let you go, and the 9th time, if I see you in here, you're going to be in trouble. And then the 9th time rolls around, and I'm sitting there, and he says, you promised to pay the last 8 times, and I don't want to hear it from you. Okay, and then we get $100 from him. That's how it goes. It's so frustrating. All I can do is complain about it.
But as district attorney, there's nothing you can do
You
about
can
it?
complain about it louder.
Oh,
And say, no, I as the district attorney, and that's what they should be doing, saying, Your Honor, we have got to stop this, okay? Most people, though, they're given the option of doing community service, okay, to offset fines and costs, but they can't pay restitution with community service.
Okay.
We have so many people out there doing community service because that offsets the fines and costs. But again, if you have somebody out there who owes $5,000 in restitution to a victim, and that's been since 2002, what do you do with that person? They're not paying. That victim out there who had everything freaking taken out of their house, if they're not working, they're doing nothing, they're not trying. It's frustrating.
Well, what if they're in the
I
welfare
say,
system?
damn it, they need to pay.
What if they're in the welfare system?
Yeah, that's a problem. Well, the welfare system is a problem too. I may have mentioned this before, but there was a man named Sportslander who would investigate welfare fraud in the county. And he brought so many cases of welfare fraud, and this is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of welfare fraud. Well, he retired, and he must have gone out and knocked on everybody's door on welfare and said, don't you commit any more welfare fraud, because after he retired, we see no cases like that anymore. They are out there, and all of those costs, that welfare fraud is borne by all of us. So, now what is your question outside of that?
Are you gonna do anything about it?
I'm going to call them, yeah. It's not my place to, well, I do go outside my place, but
Yeah.
it's my understanding there's one man for several counties now who investigates it. Apparently he's not investigating in our county.
Oh.
That needs to be taken care of, and it needs to be looked into immediately. I don't know if they want law enforcement in the local areas now to enforce the welfare fraud. They have so many other things on their plate that it's difficult for them, and tracking welfare fraud is very extensive, and there's a lot of paperwork with it, and the welfare department has all that information, and the truth of the matter is they don't like handing it out. You have to go get a warrant in order to get copies, and you'd think if they're another part of our government that they'd hand it over to us, but they refuse and make it so difficult. So yeah, that's one of my issues there.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, wait, go ahead, Mark.
Okay, I'd like to add something, because it's something you and I talked about that one night in here, when you were in here. And you added a little bit more when you were talking before, is the kind of circles of, that there are whole circles of coordinated welfare, my word coordinated, that was not your word, coordinated, a network of coordinated welfare fraud. And why isn't this man coming in here now? Wasn't there something about they changed it to one person for a
Right.
region, one investigator for a region,
Right.
instead of one per county?
I had checked that because I was perplexed as to why we didn't have any of these cases in anymore, which was shocking to me that suddenly it ended. But yes, they had, from my understanding, is they have one person who has a specific area now, not Venango County, or he's just not tracking anything in Venango County now. It's I have nothing against welfare. The purpose of welfare, for what it's worth, is to get somebody back on their feet. What we have here now is people who for generations live off welfare. We had a victim she was a 16-year-old, who said she was going to go get a house, and she's going to have, get paid every month, and they were like, what do you mean by that? She goes, well, if I have a baby, then the government pays me, and they're going to put me in the house, and that's how I'm going to live, and I'll have my baby. She's making these plans for at 17 to have this house that costs nothing for her, to have these children, and she wouldn't have to work, and she'd be getting paid. And it's like, I don't know where these ideas come from, because certainly I wasn't raised that way. We're all supposed to be hardworking people, and that's what America was built on. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Any questions? Anybody?
I got
Sure.
a couple, and one has to do with DUI,
okay,
and the other has to do with welfare.
Okay.
And I think our government is so, let's put it like it is, money hungry. But that's why we have a .08 on DUI. Now, I don't drink, so I go out with a buddy and he drinks a 12-pack a day and I have one beer. I'm drunk. He has 3 beers, he's sober.
yeah, I was going to
Who's gonna get the
say,
DUI? He is, but I won't, and I'm the one that's drunk.
you will.
Right.
You will under the general impairment if you're that wasted with such a low amount of alcohol in your system. We have cases that come in. There's a couple ways you charge DUIs. Lowest rate is .08. Then you go to this next tier, which is .10, up to .16. Then becomes the highest tier, anything and above. I had some lady who was a .47 driving down the roadway with the airbags deployed because she'd hit so many things. Jello shots at her. I don't know. I think it was poker game with the ladies. But there's also something called general impairment, and generally we charge both. General impairment means that without even knowing the BAC, you were impaired, you were incapable of safely driving, even though you might not be the lowest rate of .08. For me, I'd probably be impaired below .08. I had a woman who was a .06 in for the general impairment. She was so stinking drunk that drove out of a parking lot not looking and smashed into people. She couldn't perform any of the field sobriety tests. She was just completely wasted. And those are people, though, that aren't really heavy drinkers. People who have a higher rate and can function at a higher rate, they drink all the time, and their bodies can take it better, and they won't show signs of impairment. So, we'd still charge you if you were impaired like that.
Now, the other one I have is a truck driver. He has a CDL license. Now, you're talking about the man's livelihood or a woman's livelihood,
Right.
because they have plenty of women.
Right.
Their limit's 04. Now, if they're behind the wheel, yes, you stick them, you know. But here's a guy off on the weekend, he's out, he has 2 beers with his buddies, he's .06. You know, now, that's wrong, because you're gonna screw up that guy's license.
With that general impairment below at 0.08 up to the 0.10, you don't lose license.
Even if he's limited 04?
You don't lose license. The most you can get at that lowest rate, if it's a first offense, 0.08 to 0.10, is 6 months probation to 6 months jail. They always get probation, okay? Unless they have, like, they killed somebody and committed a few burglaries or whatever, and then maybe they'll get, 3 to 6 months in jail because of their prior record. But for our purposes, you do not lose your license at that. You don't lose your license with a general impairment. It's considered the same as lowest rate. So he wouldn't have to worry. It's just my concern would be if he went out again and he had another general impairment, then he's looking at license loss. But then you have to look, why is he drinking and driving after I would never touch the stuff again and drive if I'd already had one, and he's going to be out on the road a lot if you're saying he has a CDL.
So, yeah, but the only thing is, like, they'd have weekends off. You drive, like, we work in the shop 5 days a week, and then you have weekends off, so he has a weekend off, And so I've always thought that was discriminatory, the
Right.
way they did that, because
No,
of,
it's only with the higher rate that you lose license.
But then the other thing is, like, why does the welfare people not have to take drug tests? I guess they decided in Florida that it was against the Constitution,
Well,
constitutional
maybe
right,
Florida's
Now, as far as I'm concerned, I have to, I'm retired now, but when I was in the shop, had to give a drug test anytime they wanted it. I
I
wouldn't
have
have
to
a
do that
choice.
too.
And, why do our police departments, do our judges, do our
I don't know if judges do.
They should have
District
to.
Attorney's Office does.
anyway, our congressmen, our senators, they all should have to, and our welfare people should have
Well,
This
certainly,
is-
I agree that they should.
It goes up.
District Attorney's Office does. I was drug tested when I first was hired, and at any point in time, they can request a drug test. They haven't yet.
This is interesting. Who decides to request it? I did not know that. I just learned something new. I did not know the DA's office is to have drug tests, or it never does.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing, but but then who makes a determination, okay, we're gonna go in and ask Brenda to come for a drug test today?
I don't know. I suspect if they're looking at the behavior of the individual possibly, or maybe a complaint or somebody calling in, or maybe just randomly. I really don't know how they choose who to drug test.
We
or
need to
not.
find that out, who would
Yeah,
make
I
that
was
decision.
curious.
And does that apply to judges or anybody else?
I don't think that they
To
would
what?
apply to judges, no.
It should apply to anybody
It
that's being
should.
paid
I
out of
agree
our
it should.
taxpayer money,
Boy,
whether
should
it be a city cop, a state cop, a sheriff. I mean, it don't matter.
Yes, I
Everybody
agree.
that gets our tax money should have to be, because if they're saying I'm at work, I have to go there and work, they have to give me the test to show I'm good. Well,
But
why
they-
not the people to receive their money?
Particularly anybody who is prosecuting or making judgment calls over other people for their behavior, and then could they pass a drug test? That's an
Right.
important issue.
I will tell you that one year for my birthday in the DA's office, they did give me a little urine test thingy. Just as a joke, though. I think it's still sitting in the bathroom up there in case we ever need it.
Like Howard Hughes.
I have another question here, and I'd written it down and can't read my writing very well. This is about vouchers, expenditure vouchers for DA's office, and again, it's something that one night when she come in, Brenda come in, we talked about this a little bit, or on the phone, one or the other.
I couldn't get a
It's-
word in edgewise.
Well, that was last
Nobody
time, the last time, the other
That's
time,
good,
yes, she
yeah.
did, but not last time I did. The last time I really got on it, didn't I? And more on that too. Anyway, it's being said that the DA's office has been being having to get approval from the salary board, i.e. commissioner.